Meet Taddeo, a man caught in a daily battle where sleep is his goal, and his nemesis is a terrible accordion player named Peludete. Our setting, a worn-down boarding house where the thin walls and even thinner patience of Taddeo are pushed to the brink. But today, a hellish tableau appears as a chastisement in the Accordion and the Devil.
Although Taddeo's round, sweaty, flushed face, along with his robust belly and sturdy limbs, made him seem full of life, he didn't truly live. Yes, he didn't truly live because of the tenant directly below him, separated only by a thin wooden floor. Peludete, his downstairs neighbor, kept playing jarring music on his accordion from noon till midnight, every day and every night of the year. Taddeo would have loved to get angry, but his calm, reasonable nature got in the way. The first time he tried to object, Peludete belligerently offered to settle things with 2 kicks in the belly. After that, Taddeo figured anger wasn't worth the trouble and stuck to being sensible instead. He even bought him a present. A few days after their confrontation, Taddeo had an idea. Maybe a thoughtful gift would smooth things over. Surely if Peludete had a cleaner, better-maintained accordion, he might, at the very least, produce less of that ear-splitting screech. So, Taddeo went to the local shop and picked up a fancy accordion cleaning kit, complete with a soft bristle brush and polish. In his mind, it was a subtle, ingenious solution. A cleaner accordion might mean fewer squeaks, fewer groans, and perhaps a little more melody. Or at the very least, Peludete might take the hint and tone it down. With that glimmer of hope, Taddeo knocked on Peludete's door, gift in hand.
I thought you might like this,
he said, mustering a diplomatic smile as he presented the neatly wrapped package. Peludete blinked, then tore it open with gusto. Inside was the cleaning kit, polish, cloth, and a brush to keep the accordion in top shape.
Well, look at this. This'll get my accordion in tip-top condition.
Peludete exclaimed, holding up the brush like it was a trophy.
I thought it might, help smooth things out a bit.
Taddeo offered a weak smile.
Smooth things out?
Peludete laughed heartily.
You've got a good ear, neighbor. Now I can make sure it's cleaner than ever. Just in time for my next practice.
Taddeo's stomach turned.
Next practice?
Oh, yes. I'll clean it up real good, and it'll sound even louder and sharper. Gotta give the old squeeze box a proper shine. I've got a big tune planned for tomorrow.
As Peludete closed the door, polishing kit in hand, Taddeo felt a sinking realization. The gift hadn't given Peludete a single hint about reducing the noise. It had only fueled his enthusiasm. The next day, Taddeo heard the same screeching accordion, now freshly polished and, if anything, somehow screechier than before. Each shrill note rang through the thin walls like a shiny, polished insult. Stepping onto the rickety little balcony outside his room, Taddeo leaned over the flimsy railing, defying the laws of gravity.
Neighbor!
He shouted. The neighbor must have been torturing his poor discordion to death, judging by the way it screeched, groaned, and fell completely out of tune. Taddeo cupped his hands around his mouth, took in what felt like half the world's air, and let it all out in one mighty burst.
Would you be so kind as to step out for a moment, Senor Peludete?
He bellowed. The screeching finally stopped, and the silence as eerie as a tomb settled in. Seizing the moment, Taddeo called out,
Senor Peludete!
Sure enough, Peludete appeared at his door, accordion dangling from the bass strap like a tired monkey, hanging from his left thumb.
Is that you, neighbor? I thought I heard a distant little voice that said, Ludate?
I shouted with all my might,
replied Taddeo.
Well, and how can I help you?
Look, you know that I work the night shift from 2 in the morning until 10,
said Taddeo, exasperated.
So you've told me,
countered Peludete with a shrug.
Which means I'm forced to sleep between noon and midnight. But the thing is, I can't sleep because you play that damn instrument precisely during those hours,
continued Taddeo.
And what do you want me to do? I play in my room, and in my room, I have the right to do whatever I please. It's none of your business,
replied Peludete angrily.
But the noise you make drills into my ears, and you don't have the right to force that on me. Be more considerate,
begged Taddeo.
If you don't like my music, put in some earplugs, my friend. Or just move out, and that's the end of it.
No, it's you who's moving.
Countered Taddeo with great indignation.
Over my dead body.
Shouted Peludete. Taddeo, already imagining the 2 kicks on his belly, cut the conversation short, retreated to his cot, and started to reflect with as much calm as he could muster, while the relentless Discordion howled furiously in the background.
It's time to take some drastic action,
Murmured Taddeo. After half an hour, he went out to borrow something from his workplace. He returned at 6:30 p.m. with a bulky package and locked himself in his room, where he was heard pacing back and forth, followed by a noise as if he were drilling into wood. Peludete had gone to have dinner at the nearby tavern and didn't return until after 8. He crossed the enormous tenement courtyard, humming a gritty tango tune. He reached his door and, key in hand, gave the lock a quick glance, stabbing it with a motion that pushed the key in all the way to the ring. The door opened with a crash, and Peludete stepped back in fright, letting out an exclamation.
What the hell?
There, inside, half a meter from the door, the reddish mouth of hell yawned open. A square hole with red flames at the bottom, and, crouched behind a pile of embers, a devil with a pitchfork in his hooked hand was peering out. Peludete wasn't exactly devout. He even allowed himself to doubt whether hell and devils existed. But now the thing was clear. He stared at it, with his hair standing on end, his tongue stuck to the roof of his mouth, and drenched in cold sweat. Suddenly, his mother's Christian teachings pierced his brain like a ray of light. "Ave Maria Purissima," he exclaimed, crossing himself. There was a sound like a snap from above, and the mouth of hell vanished, leaving the floor just as dirty as if nothing had happened. Peludete stood for a long time, undecided, thinking,
Should I go in or not?
Until the sound of Taddeo's footsteps, making the floorboards creak, forced his decision, and he went inside. He lit the candle, glanced several times distrustfully at that spot, and let out a sigh of relief. If I had taken just one step. He picked up the accordion, almost mechanically, and sitting on the edge of the bed, began one of his tunes, but softly and timidly. At that very moment, beneath the bed, pitiful cries and moans were heard. It sounded like the voice of Taddeo's, as if he were being skinned alive, and at his feet in the shadows, the entrance to the underworld suddenly opened. The instrument slipped from the hands of the noisy player, coinciding with a faint explosion. The moans ceased, the infernal pit vanished, and an intense smell of burnt sulfur filled the room. A long silence followed. Then footsteps were heard in the room above. Peludete climbed off the bed and left without extinguishing the candle or closing the door. The next day, before 8 o'clock, he brought a cart and took away his belongings, which were removed by a laborer, as he didn't dare to enter the place of his torment again. When after 8 o'clock, Taddeo returned, he received the pleasant news.
I saw this coming.
He exclaimed with a laugh that could have come straight from the devil himself. Before the astonished eyes of the neighbors who had come to congratulate him, he began to coil up a rubber hose that, passing through the floor, led to the corner where Peludete had his bed.
Through here I made him hear the cries and smell the scents that are the music and perfume of Satan. Let me sleep for now. Later I'll show you a magic lantern display. And maybe you'll catch a glimpse of the devil lurking in the shadows.
In the end, Taddeo found that when reason fails and patience wears thin, ingenuity steps in to play the final hand. A simple reminder that sometimes the cleverest solution comes not from mad confrontation, but from outwitting your nemesis. Just another lesson from Bug-Eyed Tales.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this tale, please show your support by liking and subscribing to the Bug-Eyed Tales channel. Your encouragement helps us spin more yarns for your listening pleasure. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.